Hey guys, it's been a while since I've done a video. I'm going to be providing a little more content that I'm going to try to do on a week-to-week basis that is more relevant to specific topics. So that might be related to trading, it might be related to economics, it might be related to just, market structure, it might be, anything related to finance that I just feel like talking about. So, I will be finishing up the small account challenge videos. I got about 10 more videos to be uploaded. I capped it at 50 days. 50 days seemed like a good number. It was also the end of the month. And at that point, I think I had shown what you can do with a small account and, provided some daily recaps, some insights on what my trading looks like, and, some educational content relating to the setups that I'm looking at, etc. So I probably will look to do more of that stuff down the road, especially if people do decide that they want more of that. However, for the amount of time and energy that needs to go into doing the daily recaps for where we are right now with the channel, I don't think it's the best use of my time, and maybe opening up some more content would be the best way of going about doing things, and so that's the road that I'm going to travel for now. So what do I want to talk about today? Today I wanted to talk about basically two things that go what I think is hand in hand, and that is inflation and what we're seeing right now, and the money supply, and what that has looked like from historical content and from a historical aspect of human behavior and a systemic approach. So what do I mean? Well, for starters, for right now, what we're seeing is inflation in assets. We're seeing some forms of inflation, but we're also seeing some forms of deflation happening at the same time. We are seeing, unemployment, which is deflationary. We're seeing inflationary assets of real estate and stocks, right? So, the prices of these things are going up while we're in a pandemic, and we're, seeing people lose some jobs, and we are, not really growing in any way. So in terms of economically, so, right now we've got a lot of pushing and pulling factors that are happening at the same time, which is giving us a hard picture to figure out in terms of the overall painting that we're looking at. Is giving us, multiple color schemes that we're trying to figure out, and trying to, come to a conclusion as where we're headed can be a little more difficult. So clearly, like I said, we're seeing inflation in things like real estate and assets. Those things are going up because we're printing money. Money supply is being increased. The supply of money is therefore, it's essentially we're trying to buy the same things with more money, meaning that because there's more money, people are going to be willing to dish out more for it, meaning the prices of those things are going to go up because the demand is there, and therefore, like I said, the prices are going to increase. So that's why we're seeing some of the inflation in the assets from the increase in the money supply. We're all seeing the things from the pandemic. So this is where we can get into a sticky situation, because we are trying to continue to live the lifestyle that we're accustomed to in regards to, like buying your iPhone or going to the restaurants that you want to go to, and, buying the clothes that you want, and where we want our cake and we want to eat it too. And so this is where the stimulus comes in, right? We need to give people money so they can continue to live the way they want to live. We can keep the economy going the way it's going. And we won't have, a complete fallout or a bubble burst, or people can't pay for, their mortgage or whatever it might be. So we're, trying to continue to inflate this bubble that we've already created using debt, and sustain it for the time being while we're having these deflationary aspects occur. So the problem is that, credit can be really, really good. Credit can be great because we can utilize it to grow things. Like if I loan you with $100,000 and then you create a business with that $100,000, and then you go and employ people in that business, those people then make money. They then spend that money in the economy, and then the economy grows because you have a business, you have people that are employed, and people spend money on other things that then can employ other people, and we grow and we grow and we grow. So that's the beauty of credit, because then you repay that debt because you now have a business in which you can repay the debt from, and you repay me the debt that I gave to you, and everything's all good, right? I made some money on loaning you the money that you had on an interest rate, and all things are great in the world. But the problem lies in when we have too much debt, where we need more and more debt to continue to keep on the path that we're on, and that's essentially where we are right now. In that, like I said, with the pandemic, we are trying to use more and more spending and more debt that eventually will theoretically need to be repaid. And we don't really have an ability to repay it at this point. It's like there's no return of, we're not going to be able to repay the debt, period. Like there's no way. So this is not new. This is not something that has never happened before. This has happened in multiple times throughout history. Currency has been around for thousands of years. Credit has also been around for an extensive period of time. But the banking system itself has only been around for a few hundred years in terms of central banks. But what has happened previously in terms of historical context is we've had a reserve currency that's come to power. Usually the country with that comes to power. And they're in that power for a period of time revolving around 100 years. And then, that bubble grows too big and needs to pop, and it does pop, and then a new reserve currency will come to light. So we've seen that with the Dutch, we've seen that with the Brits, we've seen that with China, and it seems like we're seeing that right now with the United States. And so usually what happens, like I said, is we've seen where something like money printing, in order to sustain what's currently going on, or in order to withhold the power that's currently there, money is printed and backed in different manners and whatever, and then that gets to a point where things are inflated to the maximum, it pops, and then that leads to a conflict. The conflict usually results in a form of war. And then once that war sorts itself out and new power comes to light, they take hold of the monetary system, and then we continue on for another 100 years. So like I said, we've seen that with countries before, and we're in that period now. We're kind of coming to the end of that cycle of debt cycles or currency cycles, where a country has established itself, it's grown, it's stopped its growth, it's capped itself out, and it needs to reset itself. And this is the monetary system or cycle that we're seeing. So this is, like I said, where we've had, specifically it's happened more frequently lately with the institutions of central banks. And, the central banking system is maybe something that we need to look at and say, this is not the most beneficial for everybody involved, because it does essentially lead to a lot of conflicts. And, I think the other side of it is, never does it seem like the people in the banking system are the ones held accountable or are encountering the repercussions of the fall or the inflation and pop of these bubbles, because they're risk-free here, right? It's the governments and it's the people within the countries that end up suffering. The bank, what happens is, like I said, it'll go from China to the Dutch to the Brits to the Americans to, that's where the power tends to go to. But the central banks are just doing their thing within the system, and they're like, okay, we'll just switch it over here. So, that's not everything in a nutshell, but it's kind of the overview that the people working behind the scenes in the banking sector are the ones taking advantage of this scenario the most, and the least likely to reap the repercussions from it. So clearly, system is not designed for everybody in the same manner, and this is where it leads us to wealth inequalities, and obviously that transpires in different ways. But this, the way the monetary system is designed is certainly a big contributor to that. And so, I think we need to look at a different way of doing things. Now, maybe a reserve currency like Bitcoin or a cryptocurrency can institute something different like that, where, a Bitcoin reserve currency takes that away of, there's a certain country controlling the dynamic here. And it's a universal currency that everybody adopts based on, everything's pegged to Bitcoin, for example. So but then there lies of, who holds so much Bitcoin and whatever. So it's very complicated, clearly. But, I'm hoping that, because, as I've alluded to, a lot of the time what happens with these currency devaluations or debt bubbles, what happens with them is we lead to a conflict. And it's kind of scary to think what a conflict would look like in 2021. I don't know if the planet and the people within it can really sustain the technology and the weaponry and stuff that we have. I think we're a very fragile society now. I think that people are, I don't want to say soft, but we're accustomed to before we'd go and have to hunt for our food, right? Now our food is delivered to us at our front door. And, obviously times have changed and we've improved through technological advancements and medical advancements and all that kind of stuff. But it's also made us pretty much spoiled brats. And, I don't know how that would look like in terms of an international conflict at this point, and whether, really people would be willing to sacrifice for those things. We're not really willing to sacrifice in this, talking about the pandemic is a whole, thing altogether. But in terms of sacrifices, getting people to sacrifice, their time, or, wearing a mask, or taking a vaccine or whatever. Like there's pushback on those things for different reasons, whether they're valid or not. I'm not here to discuss them. I'm just saying that, the concept that we are, as a civilization, very hardened and able to take on tough tasks that, like I said, if we had to go find food somewhere, it's very different nowadays. And so that worries me about what a conflict might look like. And I hope that at this point now, where we are as a civilization, we can, find a way to resolve and if we're going through any sort of revolution or of sorts, or if there are any conflicts, like I said, between international disagreements, that we're able to resolve it in a way that doesn't go down that scenario. So, like I said, we've been here before, and I think that's because it's human behavior, right? We're talking about our psychology as a species is we want to see growth, we want to see power, and when it comes to, like I said, the monetary system, we get inside this 100-year window where we start growing things. We start off with saving and making sure we're doing things right after the great, a reset, a depression, or whatever. And we save, we work hard, we just want food on the table, we just want the basic things. We're not, worried about the luxuries. And then, we move on from the basic things and we want things a little bit more, a little nicer. And then before we know it, we've got, all these, tricks and gadgets that we need. And then now you want everything. You want your Louis, your Louis bag, your Gucci, your whatever. And then everybody wants that stuff, right? And it's like, I'm not saying there's anything against that. I'm just saying that our thought process and our human behavior and our psychology has changed, and that now we want our cake and we want to eat it too. We want to keep it going, keep it going, keep it going at all costs. And this is, like I said, I think a human behavior that has repeated itself over time throughout history. And, it's something that I'm not surprised to see is occurring again, but I think we need to figure out a different way to approach things this time, and be a little smarter about it, because history has shown it repeats itself. And, we're on that path right now, coming back around full circle when we talk about inflation and money supply, because, this has been shown in the banking system. This is how it goes. It's, we, like I said, the circle comes all the way around, push comes to shove. We're, boxed in. The Federal Reserve is boxed in. There's nothing it can do. All it can do now is just print more stimulus. We've got a stimulus going up. We've got inflation going up. All of a sudden, inflation passes the amount of stimulus that we can give. And then, boom, everything's deflationary at that point. So, like I said, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today. There's a lot more that we can go into with money markets and understanding, interest rates and treasury yields and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot to wrap your head around. Day by day, I'm always learning something new. So hopefully this gave you guys something to shape your perspective on differently. And if you caught one or two pieces of this and you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe. If you like the content, I will be trying to produce more stuff similar to this. So stay tuned, and I will be talking to you guys soon.